I want to welcome all of you to this historic health equity announcement. And if the spirit breaks out, it's all right to say hallelujah. This church was selected for the reason there's a line in the Bible that you know about the least of these. Feed the hungry. And as you saw the line outside, that's why we're here. We're chosen 1 Corinthian because they embody the principles of our church and our faith. And so to open us in his own way, our host pastor, Mike Waldron, will lead us to the throne of grace.
Good morning. We are grateful on this day, and much will be said about this partnership, but I will say, when you see creative public-private partnerships to address community needs, it says a lot about what will take place in the communities where the needs are the greatest. And one principle we operate by here at FCBC, but this partnership embodies, is treating the needs of the people as holy. We treat the needs of the people as holy, and we're intentional about that. Transformation will always be on the agenda. Let's pray. God, we honor you on this day, and we thank you, oh God, for how you continue to remind us of the sufficiency of your grace, the eternal nature of your mercy, and the all-encompassing power of your love. We ask, oh God, as we gather here today to celebrate a new creative collaboration and partnership to meet the needs of your people, that we will be reminded that the undergirding ethos will always be love, and that we stand as the embodiments of not only passion for what is possible, but compassion for your children, oh God. So God, as we move forward, oh Lord, let us never dull our sensibilities towards creativity when it comes to the work of healing. And so on this day, be with the partners, oh God, be with those who will lead this initiative. But most of all, oh God, remind us of the clarion call we have to stand in solidarity with those, oh God, who are often overlooked and marginalized and undercounted. For we are with and we are that community. God, touch everyone who is here in this space, every clergy person, every official who will work to make sure that this program is all that it needs to be. But most of all, oh God, make sure that in all we do, in all we say, in all the partnership, that you get all the glory. We love you, God. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Our first speaker is a person who is representing the federal government of the United States, the Health and Human Services Department, and she's a big mucka-mucka over there. But the reason she's our first speaker is because of her character. Before she went to the federal government, she was pastor of a church in New York, but before that and during that, she was a justice champion. She dealt with human trafficking and raised the issue to new heights and to new visibility. The people that other people don't want to talk about. You see them on street corners and under highways and byways who are the victims of abuse and trafficking. Someone needed a champion, and God called Reverend Q English to be the champion that she has been. And now our next speaker, the Reverend Q English.
Thank you, Reverend DeGraff, and thank you for leading the charge for Choose Healthy Life, CHL, here in New York City. And New York City is my home and our house of worship in the Bronx, where Reverend Tim English pastors have been honored to be a CHL church, providing education and opportunities and increasing vaccinations and boosters across the Bronx. And to the Honorable Governor Kathy Hochul, thank you for your commitment to help improve health outcomes in New York's underserved communities. We thank you for your leadership. And we know as a nation, we are facing challenging times as we are still mourning the recent loss of lives of children and family members as has touched home right here in Buffalo, New York. We know these atrocities, along with the loss of lives due to COVID, and this is a very important point, have created a greater demand for mental health services across our nation, including for our children, as last year, youth mental health was declared a national emergency. We also saw an uptick in suicides and suicide attempts. And to that end, Health and Human Services, under the leadership of Secretary Javier Becerra, announced critical investments for the implementation of 988 dialing code for National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The implementation of 988, which is anticipated to become operationalized in July 2022, marks a significant step forward in strengthening access to care for 39 million Americans who experience suicidal, mental health, and substance use challenges each year. That's why the work by CHL has been so critical. Over the past 15 months, we've made tremendous progress in our fight against COVID-19, with over 220 million Americans now fully vaccinated and over 100 million people boosted. And because of the work the Biden administration has done on vaccines, boosters, treatments, and more, COVID-19 deaths today are down 90% from when the president took office, even as cases rise in parts of the country. Children 5 years and older can now receive boosters. And while COVID isn't over, it's critical that Americans know that we now have more tools than ever to protect ourselves. The tools that the administration has made widely available to the American people are working to prevent serious illness, to keep people out of hospital, and to save lives. We can now prevent most COVID deaths, and that's major progress. And we couldn't have done it without the work across the nation of Choose Healthy Life, under the leadership of national co-chairs Deborah Fraser-Howes and Reverend Al Sharpton. We at Health and Human Services are proud to have provided the needed support through HRSA to CHL and United Way. And I do want to take time to just congratulate CHL and Steve Ruskowski of Quest Diagnostics for your public-private partnership to address health disparities in Black communities. And I have to end by saying Deborah Fraser-Howes has always been a force. A force as it relates to addressing health disparities in our African American communities. I remember her work here in New York in the fight against HIV/AIDS. She is a true champion for African American communities as she continues to develop innovative ways to bridge the gap in health services and care. And so I am so honored to work alongside of you and sharing this important day with you. Thank you.
When Deborah Fraser-Howes finished at the National Black Leadership Commission on AIDS, she went into the private sector, became an outstanding executive, and eventually retired, but then the pandemic hit. And from her home on high, she heard the calls in the Valley and responded by putting together a national organization called Choose Healthy Life. She had to select leaders for this organization, and she picked two men of great substance and great faith and great courage. One of them, our co-chair, is with us tonight. He's Reverend Justice, the president of the National Action Network, and so much more. Not just when police shoot somebody, not just when there's an injustice in courts, but behind the scenes, he's moving and shaking to improve the lives of our community. Would you welcome in a special Choose Healthy Life kind of way, the president and founder of the National Action Network, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Thank you, Reverend DeGraff. Let me say that many years ago, when Deborah Fraser-Howes pioneered the work against AIDS epidemic in our community, it was not well received by many, particularly in the faith community, because many had biases based on homophobia. And she tarried through anyway and ended up making major impact. So it was no surprise to me when I got a call from Deborah Fraser-Howes around the COVID-19, because she has a sensitivity and a radar of where we need to be and when we need to be there. And she doesn't go by what is popular. Dr. King used to say that you do not follow public opinion, you mold public opinion. And that is what she has done. And it is for that reason that I was honored to join Reverend Dr. Calvin Butts in co-chairing of this effort. I think this announcement could not have been at a more appropriate place than a place that has given this community hope and service and has been a personification of what the gospel is about, and that is 1 Corinthians Baptist Church. Who is pastor has did the prayer, Reverend Dr. Michael Walron, who's also a member of our national board of National Action Network. And the secret to his ministry and the growth of this church is his wife. Stand up, Dr. Walron, president of New York Theological Seminary. Several months ago, Deborah Fraser House and I joined with Rick and went and met with Governor Hochul and talked about the vision and need to deal with Choose Healthy Life. And before we got through the first 10 minutes, she wanted to know what could she do and how she could do it. And I've met and dealt with governors for the last 35 years. I've not met a governor that was more ready, able, and productive and delivered than Governor Hochul has done. So what she's announcing today is an example of her partnership with not only the private sector, which we must give credit to Quest. Give Quest a hand. Because I can imagine it is that sensitivity when Deborah goes to a private sector company like Quest and say, I got Al Sharpton, Calvin Butts. It does take a lot of courage to go forward with that. You do understand that most private sector people would have to check it, but they've been all in. But Governor Hochul has said we must do it, and we must do it right away, and she did do it right away. Just like when we had the mass shooting in Buffalo. She called me and said, I'm getting ready to do some changes in the law. I want you to know. And she was the first governor I've seen to respond immediately with some proclamations and some governor executive orders. And she and I and Mayor Brown are getting ready to do some things in Buffalo around economic development. So I wanted to be here, even though I'm scared to be somewhere else, to say that this announcement, which brings Quest and brings a governor that's been productive and a community together with faith leaders, is historic, it is needed. Forget the politics for the moment. People are in real need. We are dying from COVID. COVID is not over. And the need for testing, the need for vaccination is not over. It is out of the headlines, but we're not out of the headlights. And that is the COVID truck that will continue to ride over us. So I wanted to be here to say, yes, I co-chaired. Yes, I supported. Yes, I thank God for Quest. And I thank God for Governor Hochul on this day. And I'm going to, as you know, I've got to be disruptive, so I'm going to take it from Reverend DeGraff and bring the Queen who has done it, made it possible. Let me be the one, Doctor, to introduce the originator and the propagator, Queen Deborah Fraser House.
I'm going to do this quickly because I want to respect the governor's time. And I just want to say thank you so much. God has blessed Choose Healthy Life with each and every one of the people in this room. Thank you, Reverend Sharpton, and Reverend DeGraff, Reverend Waldron, for allowing us the privilege to be here. And we're here today because we understand the importance of the trusted voices in our community. And we couldn't have voices more trusted in our community than Reverend Sharpton and Reverend Butts. And we are blessed that they've come together to sort of work with us to save our lives. We're here because we understand the importance of the union of the black community and the black clergy with the medical community. The union of faith and science have never been lost on me. And I saw what that union did around AIDS bringing millions and millions of dollars, and through legislation that the clergy did themselves to ensure that the black community would have funding to address that other issue that was killing us. We're here today because we understand that, chief among us, that we are being killed more than any other group in America for a number of reasons. We've got 140,000 children who have lost a primary or secondary parent to COVID. We know that we died twice as much as anybody else in this pandemic. And everybody says, you know, when are we going to get back to normal? We've got to get back to normal. Well, you know what happened to us in normal? In normal, we were 30% of us most likely to be obese. 60% of us were most likely to have diabetes. 30% of us were most likely to have hypertension. Black women were 2 times more likely to have a stroke. Black women were 3 times more likely to die in childbirth. Black people were 2 times more likely to be killed by gun violence, and 14 times more likely to be wounded by gun violence. We can't go back to normal. We died in normal. This program sets a new paradigm, and one that will allow us to choose life over death. That's why we say, like Deuteronomy, choose life so that both thou and thy seed may live. We thank Governor Hochul. We thank God for her, for allowing us the faith that she has in this community. We are determined to do her proud. The faith that she has in us to allow us to hire health navigators in each of these churches on the ground to be an army, to go out into the community, to link our people to the health services that they need, to do these surveys of 15-mile radius in the community, on the ground, link the people in the community to the care that they need, do the education that they need to help women who are pregnant, to help around this whole mental health issue, to get people connected when Quest goes out and does the testing with them when they have hypertension, when they are pre-diabetic, when they actually have diabetes, and make sure that they can save their own lives. We will not go back to normal because we refuse to continue to die. And the governor has recognized that we were dying. And for the first time, we have a governor that's not giving us lip service, but actually is doing something for us. And we are thankful for that. We also are thankful to Quest and for partnering with us, for giving us resources that no other company is there. Everybody was writing letters and you know, when George Floyd died and saying Black Lives Matter, well, they also put their money where their mouth was. And so we have now a public-private partnership that we guarantee, because we owe it to the community to make this work. We've got Siemens, we've got Novo Nordisk, we've got companies that are coming in saying we want to be a part of this army that the governor and Quest and others are putting together to march forward. And we thank God for that, and we thank God for you. Thank you so much. Governor, take your place.
In order to set the table, you need to be aware of some things. When Reverend Sharpton refers to his radio show, he's a national leader who speaks to the country and listens 5 days a week, and then he's on cable TV, on MSNBC, on Saturday and Sunday. There's no other leader in America who does that, and so we salute him and his leadership and his clarion voice. Governor, each person on this dais is really a freedom fighter who's fighting in their own dimensions and their own battlefields about inequality. And one could even call them a Justice League. And if they're a Justice League, that would make you Wonder Woman. Because when we met with her, usually when we meet, Reverend Sharpton referred to it, people kind of sit back, they bring 1 or 2 folks. She brought the whole second floor with her. And then she had a list after we said what we want. She said, and after you do that, I'd like you to take on gun violence and maternal mortality and telehealth. She fast forwarded it. And so the woman who came prepared, the governor of the state of New York, we're the #1 state in investing in the resources of our community. When others said that we're worst, you said that we were first. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Put your hands together in a choose healthy life kind of way for the governor of the state of New York, Kathy Hochul.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend DeGraff. Thank you. I remember the day like it was yesterday when the entourage of my fellow members of the Justice League descended into my office, and I looked at them and says, I cannot say no to this group. These are the most powerful voices of a community that has endured so much injustice throughout life. And Deborah, I am not going back to normal. There is no more normal. Normal is dead for this community because there is a better life that awaits all of us, our babies, our seniors, the moms who are so stressed out, just trying to keep it all together. So you have my undying commitment to continue what I learned at the kitchen table. And I talked to Reverend Al and so many other leaders about why I'm so passionate about this. And I was one of those children of the 60s. I might be around the same age as Reverend Al. We have to check on that. Maybe I'm a little older, I don't know. But my parents taught us, being raised in a social justice Catholic household, and we didn't have much. My parents lived in a trailer park, but we used to get our clothes at used clothing stores. We didn't know, we just loved each other. We were a big family. But my parents taught us about Dr. Martin Luther King while he was still alive. Okay, he made sure we understood that when he came to Buffalo and he talked about the history of integration and what that has done. And my parents, as in their 20s, they were married very young, became leaders of a movement called HOME, Housing Opportunities Made Equal. And in this white working class neighborhood, they worked to make sure that Black and brown residents also had an opportunity. So we've been at the forefront, even in a place called Buffalo. So this is personal to me, but it's also living the word of Christ that I was taught. And I know that if I do something for the least of my brothers and sisters, I'm honoring God in the process. I'm doing for Him. And that's why we take care of people who are hungry and sick and incarcerated and living in fear, because this is what we do. This is our motivation. We serve God through our work. And that is why I believe in the intersection of public service, but also the power of the clergy and the private sector who step up. We come together. We are unstoppable because there is so much injustice in this world that needs to be righted. But I thank people like Deborah, who way before it was a popular thing to do to talk about AIDS. And I know you did it with my friend Hazel Dukes as well, because she told me the stories. Hazel Dukes out there? I can't see, I got a lot of light going on. Hazel Dukes, stand up. Mama Dukes, right there. Mama Dukes. Thank you, my friend. And to have Quest Diagnostics, Jim Davis, this means a lot to us. And I thank you for this engagement. Everybody knows Quest, but I'm going to continue to talk about Quest as being on the front line of righting the wrongs of the past. And you want to be with us on that, and to have the United Way represented and all the work that you're doing there. And Columbia University and Reverend English, and I mean, this is a powerful group, and even bringing in the political world. Former Assembly Member Keith Wright, I believe, has joined as the county chair. Senator Cordell Clear. I mean, this is the intersection, but what are we going to do? We have the power, okay, I feel the power here, but what does it really mean to change people's lives? It means to say, and I'll declare it right here at 1 Corinthian Baptist Church, I will say that there is no justice as long as kids are growing up in substandard housing where their own environment may be contaminating their little lives. Lead paint on the walls is an injustice. Going to a school where there's not enough teachers and the classrooms are crowded and the paint is chipping off the walls and the linoleum's as crappy as it's been since the 1950s, that is not justice. That's not the same environment those kids deserve. That's injustice. And then our young males, are we giving them the hope they need to make the right decision when they're in about 12, 13, 14, when they see their older brother involved in a gang and he feels like that's a family that gives him respect? How do we pull that young person and say, we want to lead you on a path of justice as well, because justice for this community means you're going to end up in a different place, and know that there is support for you. And we will get you an education, and ultimately an education and jobs behind that. And not just a job for this young person, a career where they can make a difference. We have to show them the path. And that's why I'm investing in violence disruptors, former gang members who are my friends. I worked with them in Buffalo for years. My husband was Barack Obama's United States attorney. We've been engaged in this battle a long time. This is personal. But they're the ones who are the validators as well. They can say, listen, I made the wrong decision. Follow me and I'll take you on a different path. And to help our senior citizens who deserve the dignity of good health care when they're older, or the moms who just had a baby. I have a 1-month-old grandbaby. My children are blessed. They will not worry about health care. And they know they are blessed. They know that this is an advantage that too many do not have, and we do not take it for granted. But I will not rest as now a grandmother until I know that every baby born has a good, healthy start in life, and that the mother does not die during childbirth because of the color of her skin. That is injustice. That is intolerable. And we talk about our immigrant community, people living among us. They don't have the documentation. They're still New Yorkers. And I realized that health care covered by the federal government and the state took care of a pregnant mom. But the second the baby was born, the Medicaid services stopped. And the mom was on her own, and she went back into the shadows, and who knows what happened to her. In my budget just a couple months ago, I said, no, we're going to have the state of New York step up if the federal government won't. I will pay for those services for the first year of life so that mother does not slip into postpartum depression. Someone who needs help, someone who helps her become a good mom and give that baby a better chance. And our senior citizens, over 65, if you have documentation, you have Medicare, you're all set, right? We're proud of that. You're undocumented, you don't have it. No one's taking care of you. And I said, why don't we show what kind of people we are here in the state of New York? Over the age of 65, we'll pick up that tab regardless of your status. So we're going to take care of them as well. So I believe in this. This is in my DNA, as it is in all of yours. You've all been called to serve. But when we can support a program like this one, Choose Healthy Life, and yes, it is derived from the Bible, I was asked to be supportive. I said, what do you need? They said about $3.5 million. I said, how about 3.8? $3.8 million to support your services, and I want this to be a model for the rest of the nation. 20 churches will be supported financially by the state of New York so you can continue God's work here on earth. That's what this is about, my friends. And I'm so proud of all of you who've stepped up and answered the call from all walks of life. And I believe that we'll continue to address the systemic racism that reared its ugly head during this pandemic. And if you cannot see it for what it is, just look at the numbers. Black and brown members of our community, fellow New Yorkers, contracted COVID, were hospitalized with COVID, and died at a rate 2 to 3 times higher than white New Yorkers. You cannot bury your head anymore to that fact. And the fact that vaccines, do we get them out enough to the churches and the test kits? I've taken this on with a vengeance. I have Dr. Mary Bassett. I brought her on as our health commissioner. She is heading up a health equity task force, and I said, you find out why. Because when I find out why, we're going to fix it. We're going to take care of this. And you, through this program, are going to be embedded with us as well with the data I need, the facts I need, but also the boots on the ground. And that's why these churches opening up, not just to talk about the Word of God on a Sunday, but to live the teachings of God every day of the week through this program. So I thank you. I am so grateful for what you are doing. And lastly, I'm wearing orange today because it is the color to call out gun violence. And Reverend Al, Hazel, and I were in Buffalo. that massacre of people shopping at Tops Friendly Markets, it's called Tops Friendly Markets, were my neighbors. I live 10 minutes from there. I live in downtown Buffalo. My husband lives there. I don't see him as much, but he's good with that. We're okay. It's been 38 years. We've been together a long time. But he dedicated his life to protecting the people in those communities. And this was painful for him as well. So we left there, and I said, I will do everything in my power. We have just a few days left of session, and I know Andre Stewart Cousins is the leader of the Senate, and Carl Heastie is the leader of the Assembly. We will march together, hand in hand, and make sure that we change the laws that resulted in an 18-year-old being able to go into a store and buy an AR-15, the same kind of gun, bought by another white 18-year-old in Texas that slaughtered a group of children just simply sitting in their classrooms and two brave teachers. So we're saying here in New York, we will lead, but the rest of the states, shame on you if you don't. This is a moment of reckoning. History and ultimately God will judge all of us by how we responded to this crisis to take the guns out of the streets. And lastly, I'll say, this is not just about the shootings that get all the attention and all the reporters go there and there's attention for a couple days until the next one and the next one. There's been 230 mass shootings since this year started. That's more than 4 people killed at a time. I will not take my eyes off the fact that New Yorkers are dying every single day in our streets. It may not be one crazy mass murderer, but they're being slaughtered in their streets, innocent children, people caught in crossfire, and that is why the blood pressure and stress levels of black women are 60% higher than white women, because this is the stress they live with every day. And blood pressure is high, and diabetes, and all these other health effects of living in an environment of fear. Justice means you don't live in fear any longer. So I'm going to continue working. I'm going to sign those bills in a matter of days, make sure that the rest of the nation sees what we do, and as Reverend Al has done with his voice, calling out the Republicans in Congress and saying, start going to the funerals of these babies if you have no heart. And then you walk out of there and say, I will not make the changes to protect Americans. You have done an amazing job, Reverend Al, but I want to back you up here in the state of New York, and I will continue to call them out. So I am energized, I'm motivated, and I do have my Justice League standing side by side with me. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Kathy Hochul, the #1 governor of the #1 state. Somebody wants to know how we got there, Reverend, Brother Jim. Well, in our traditions, Pastor, we say, who are your people? We want to know who are your people. And so Hazel Dukes was the first person in our community to stand up and say, she's all right. She's the one. And then we wanted to see the people around us. So when we met, we looked and saw some familiar faces. Stacey Lynch, who's a public servant, is part of the governor's team, and Stacey Lynch is Bill Lynch's daughter, and she's part of that group. She didn't just start, but Kathy Hochul brought her on, and I'm looking out for somebody else. Marcy McCall, maybe you remember when her father signed the paychecks of everyone in New York as the first black comptroller and statewide elected official, and now his daughter carries on the tradition of public service, and she's with Kathy Hochul. And so when we look around for co-signers, for people who are part of the New Deal, we can see that we see people who look like us. And so, Jim Davis, before I bring you up, the CEO of Quest, we need to all stand for a moment, because Reverend Sharpton is our co-chair, but there's another co-chair. Please stand. The Reverend Calvin O. Butts is our other co-chair, and he couldn't be with us today. You don't need to know the details, but we're going to have a moment of silent prayer. God knows all about it. And so if you would just bow your head and have a moment of silent reflection to empower our beloved brother. Thank you. You may be seated. Those people who are in armed warfare, there's no higher promotion than a battlefield promotion. Quest Diagnostics has been with us throughout early, and they literally put their money where their mouth is, but time came for them to change their CEO. And as they looked through the ranks, Ruth Clemons, of leadership, they saw someone who had been involved with our communities fighting the pandemic. And I don't know about the org charts and the political dynamics within Quest Diagnostics, but I know about a battlefield promotion. And so we're presenting to you the future, the president-elect and CEO of Quest Diagnostics, the battlefield general, Jim Davis.
I'm not sure about the politics either, but I'll have you know they chose a New Yorker. I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York as well. So your words are inspiring, and more important, your actions speak more than your words. So thank you for what you're doing. You know, on behalf of Quest Diagnostics, I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to be here. Thank you, Governor. Deborah, thank you so much for your partnership. I know Reverend Sharpen left here, but thank you all for your partnership and enabling us to do such great work. Reverend DeGrath, thank you for your inspiring words and what you mean. Reverend Waldron, who runs this community church here, thank you, and Reverend English. Your leadership and connection to the healthcare workers in New York and to the community and helping us accomplish our mission are really, really exciting to see. I also want to introduce Ruth Clemons. Ruth, please wave to us. Ruth is our Executive Director, Vice President, General Manager of our infectious disease business, and was at the heart of fighting COVID. In addition to that, her full-time job being that, she's also the head of Quest for Health Equity, serving an incredibly noble purpose and mission on behalf of Quest. We are very, very proud. We're very proud to be part of this and to be part of one of the founding sponsors for Choose a Healthy Life and to kick off this weekend of hope and healing. You know, every single day, Quest Diagnostics tests about 4.5 to 5 million people, and we try to provide diagnostic insights as to what is going on inside their human body. In fact, right here in New York, across the state of New York, we test over 250,000 New Yorkers every single day, again, trying to bring them insights as to what's going on inside their bodies so that they can take action and hopefully choose a healthier life. You know, in early 2020, at the start of the pandemic, we could see very early on where our testing was coming from, and more importantly, where it was not coming from. And we saw the disproportionate impact of COVID, not just from a testing standpoint, but as you mentioned, also from an impact standpoint. It affected the Black and brown community more than any other community across the United States. Choose Healthy Life was one of the first organizations that we teamed up with to support under-resourced communities in New York City, Newark, Atlanta, Detroit, and Washington, D.C. We formed Quest for Health Equity and put over $100 million in a fund that we will use across America to help individuals improve their lives. We held our first testing event here, right here in Harlem, in the Abyssinian Baptist Church nearly 18 months ago. Through funding provided by the Quest Foundation, Choose Healthy Life and the United Way of New York City established a church-based community health workforce to help neighbors obtain vital healthcare services and resources. And we are proud here today to announce our next commitment, which is offering something we call the Blueprint for Wellness. It is a laboratory panel that allows individuals, again, to see what's going on inside their human body. It's not something we've tailored for this community. It is something that 50,000 Quest employees get on an annual basis. It's the same identical product that we offer to corporations and to medical societies across America. It is the same product that we are bringing right here. And by knowing your numbers, as I've said, hopefully that's the start to allowing people to empower themselves to choose healthier lives. So I would like to thank everybody here that came out today to be part of this seminal event. We're proud to be part of it. Deborah, thank you again for working with us. Governor, thank you for enabling this. And on behalf of Quest Diagnostics, this is just the beginning. We are here to help. Thank you.
You know, when we say public-private partnerships, we're talking about Quest Diagnostics is a for-profit business. So when they put their money where their mouth is, that means it's a real commitment, and we are grateful for your vision, for your commitment, and for your leadership. And I want we call this the VIP section. You need to know, Governor, who's in the house. And so our community was flooded with misinformation at the beginning of this pandemic. And so people said, who can you believe? I would like to ask the Choose Healthy Life church people to stand. They stand, pastors, navigators, okay? When the reason we want you to see that is because usually when people talk about the black church, they talk about my church. And so whatever church that is, whether they're Baptist or Presbyterian or whatever denomination, that's who they're talking. But this is a representative across the city of New York of interdenominational. The only thing that we all agree on is Jesus. And so we follow him in many traditions, but these are the people who make this town go on Sundays and beyond. And then we have the leadership of Harlem Hospital is here. George LeConte and Phil Cook, would you stand? Because one of the issues that we have before Dr. Fullerlove comes up, one of the issues we've had is people said, believe the science. Believe the science. It was the science we could believe, but the scientists we sometimes had problems with. And that's how those disparities occurred. And so we have leaders from across our communities. I think the Drayton sisters are here, business women of prominence in our community. Would you stand and be recognized? It's a citywide event. People came from all over town to be a part of this moment. And so when we talk about scientists, as Deborah put this coalition, this tapestry together of leaders, we looked up on the hill, because in Harlem, if you keep going on 116th Street, and you want to go up all those steps to Morningside Heights, you get to Columbia. And then we had a scientist who was one of us and who represented us. And so we chose Dr. Fullerlove to lead our training, to be our bridge to the scientific community, and he is without peer, not only in New York City, but across the country as a respected scientist healer. So would you put your hands together in a Harlem kind of way for Dr. Fullerlove?
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Governor, can't tell you how honored I am to share this moment with all of you. I'm really proud to be the public health voice for this gathering, because we are in the midst of a moment, and I know you feel it, as do I. Sandro Galea, who is the Dean of the School of Public Health at Boston University, is fond of saying that we don't really have a system of health care in the United States. What we have is sickness management. That's because doctors do not promote health. They fix us when we're broke, but really, health is about what we do as individuals and what we do collectively in communities with each other. Nothing can be more important, it seems to me, than this moment when we're finally saying that health is, more than anything else, a choice. Hence, choose healthy life. If ever there was power in a slogan, if ever there was power in a monocle, I have to believe that Choose Healthy Life is a moment that we are all going to remember. And this day is a day that we're going to celebrate, not just today, but in years to come. 58 years ago, I was part of a group of 800 college students who went south to Mississippi to be a part of what is now known as Mississippi Freedom Summer. A lot of my students at Columbia have no recollection of that event. We don't teach history very well in schools these days, and a lot of my students really believe that history began the day they were born. If you have kids, maybe you know that feeling as well. Mississippi Freedom Summer began the very first day with the murder of 3 of our colleagues. We succeeded in that summer literally because of the partnership we made with the churches throughout Mississippi that did the job of telling the community that this was a moment that they had to rise to accept. Can you imagine what it was like to tell somebody in a dirt shack in Mississippi that, number one, you are a citizen of a democracy, that you have a right and a responsibility to do what you can to register to vote, knowing full well that when you passed that message, you were asking people to risk their lives? How did we succeed in making that movement work? It was because of the work of the church. It was the folk in the congregations who convinced their neighbors, this is the time, this is a moment. As was said, I'm one of those folks who's involved with the health navigators on an almost weekly basis. I get to talk to them about the work that they do, the sights that they see when they're in the community, when they're in the streets talking to their neighbors. And I am so powerfully reminded of those moments when in Mississippi it was the same thing. The folk who were in the streets talking to their neighbors saying, this is our time, you have to seize it, you have to grasp it. I want to believe that this is what we are all about, because we're going past COVID-19 to think of all of the health disparities that made that virus so deadly. We're not stopping with the virus. We're going to think about diabetes. We're going to work on obesity. We're going to deal with cardiovascular disease. And I know, more than anything else, especially in the feeling that I think all of us have in this moment, that we are about to see history made. One of the lines I recall from one of the ministers that I used to run into at Natchez, Mississippi, was something he used to say in church when he was trying to convince the congregation that this was the time when voting should be on their mind. Some of you who are in front of the pulpit have probably used this line as well. If not us, who? And if not now, when? Ladies and gentlemen, this is our moment. Let's conquer.
It's always important to put the moment in perspective, and thank you, Dr. Fullerlove, for continuing to hold high the banner. We have the Deputy Borough President of Manhattan, Keisha Sutton James, and if the name sounds familiar, she's the granddaughter of the man we call the chairman, Percy Sutton. Would you stand and let us salute you? Dr. Fullerlove, I know some of these folk, and they're looking at me like, when are you going to call my name? And I can't call everybody's name, so here's what we're going to do. All of you are VIPs, and if the person next to you has not acknowledged that, they've now deputized to turn to the person next to you, Mr. or Miss VIP, and say, I'm so glad you're here. The last speaker came with a team. On some blocks north or south from here, they might be called the posse, but they're the ones who get it done. And we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge the United Way team. So everyone has been talking about the partnership, but there's three logos here. Choose Healthy Life, you know who we are. Quest Diagnostics, but the United Way. They're called the implementation partner. That means they receive the funds and then work with us in the allocation of the program, because we don't want to go to jail. They are the gold standard of philanthropy, and they are in partnership with us. They have been on the front lines of fighting food shortages in New York and in our communities. They've been fighting poverty, and so when you walk in the room with the United Way, you're walking in with the A-team. And so I want to acknowledge the Vice President for Health Equity, who has just been appointed, Michelle Drayton. I want to acknowledge, would you stand? I want to acknowledge Ben Parisi, and I love this. We actually brought heaven to church. Reverend Heaven Berhane has been our point person. Madeline Chapman is an all-star who delivers on so many levels, and we are delighted that she is in the number. Lemuria has been the person in this group who could walk home. And she serves the community day in and day out, and is third generation somebody special. And so United Way has really been an instrumental part of everything that we do. They help us with our strategic planning and the delivery. They're working with Marcy and the people at the Department of Health to help move us forward. We're moving into phase 3 now to address all of these concerns. So as it's indicated that Quest has appointed a new CEO, and so has United Way. And so that person, Grace Bonilla, has not yet taken office. And so the question is, who would represent them? And usually that's a senior staff person, but United Way chose one of their most prominent board members to come and speak to us on behalf of this organization that Sister Marsha Lee Watson, what they do is they fight poverty. They remember the least of these. Sister Hidayah, would you come forward in your own way? From United Way.
Thank you so much, Reverend DeGraff. As a person of faith myself, I'm so honored to be here, and I really want to thank the pastor for hosting us in your church, in your home, in God's home today. And Miss Deborah, it's always such a pleasure to see you. We would have no implementation power at the United Way without Miss Deborah's innovation. So thank you for giving us the gift of implementing your vision. And Governor Hochul, thank you for everything you're doing for communities of color, but also for women. I would be remiss without mentioning everything you're doing for the BIPOC communities, but also for women. The United Way of New York City is pleased and honored to be the lead implementation partner for Choose Healthy Life. And we are so grateful for this incredibly impactful investment from Governor Hochul and from Jim and his team at Quest Diagnostics to this critical initiative. This almost $4 million in funding allocated from New York State for this year will enable the United Way of New York City and our incredible staff to coordinate broader and deeper work across New York and serve many more New Yorkers through an expanded network of public health navigators and Black churches, many of whom are represented here today. Thanks to a continued and very generous investment of nearly $9 million in total from Quest Diagnostics, being the implementing this work has been made possible over the past year and a half. In partnership, we're thrilled to be implementing Quest's Blueprint for Wellness, which is an incredible tool for our public health navigators to share with the community as an empowering resource for their own healthcare needs. There is no limit to what this trusted, deeply knowledgeable workforce can achieve for their communities. As you all know, the COVID-19 pandemic laid bare the disparities and inequity in access to healthcare and information that New York City's Black and brown communities have long faced. United Way of New York City's partnerships with the state of New York, the city of New York, corporations like Quest Diagnostics, and the implementation of programs like Choose Healthy Life with Ms. Deborah are essential components of our organization's campaign for equity. United Way of New York City is committed to helping to foster equity in the areas of education, workforce development, small business support, food and benefits access, criminal justice reform, and of course, health, as we see here today with Choose Healthy Life. We are grateful for the opportunity to gather today to commemorate a powerful partnership focused on bringing life-saving health and wellness to underserved communities throughout New York City. And I have to say, the power of this event started for me as we all walked into this church, witnessing a line of people surrounding this church, waiting to enter the food pantry service. And so for me, it really is a symbol of how the church is a hub for community. The church is a place for worship, but worship also is being in service of one another and creating access to food and creating access to shelter. And little do so many people in that line know that the governor is gathered here with us today, just a few steps away from where they're gathered in line. So I'm deeply moved by that, and I am so immensely thankful to the staff at the United Way of New York City for their incredible work in service in the community, to our Choose Healthy Life partners, our clergy leaders, Reverend Sharpton, Reverend DeGraff, Quest Diagnostics, and Governor Hochul for all of your tremendous work. Thank you for giving United Way the gift of carrying out this work in partnership with you.
Now I need you to pay attention because we're getting ready to go somewhere. The first thing, there's two people that we have to acknowledge. One is the person that we call Mr. TCB, taking care of business. Ron Tico is the wind beneath our wings. Ron, would you stand? He's the Chief Operating Officer of Choose Healthy Life. And he is the one. In another life, I was Al Sharpton's campaign manager when he ran for mayor, and I would get a 6 a.m. phone call every day. And I never got used to it. And so I was really glad when we didn't win, actually. And years later, I traded that in to work with the Choose Healthy Life Chief Operating Officer, and now I get a 7:30 a.m. text from Ron Tico every day because he's on the case, and we appreciate everything that he does and who he is. The original premise and the original plan and organization for Choose Healthy Life involved 5 what we call legacy cities: Detroit, Newark, Atlanta, D.C., and New York. Each of them received charters for 10 churches. New York received for 10, and then when the expansion came and we expanded to 120 churches in 13 states, New York doubled its footprint to 20 churches. It's the only church in the country, the only city in the country with a hub of 20 churches. And so Deborah, in her wisdom, looked across the landscape to pick somebody to be the clergy leader in New York. Wait for it, that would be me. And it has been the privilege of a lifetime to stand shoulder to shoulder once again with my sister of 50 years and our friendship of working together again to lift up our community. Now, here's what we're going to do. Pay close attention. The folk on this side are going to stand behind the folk on this side. Hazel Dukes will come and join us, and the robed clergy and the clergy pastors from Choose Healthy Life are coming together for the official picture of the morning, photo op. Please move with dispatch. That would be you. That would be you. Get up. Thank you. Step lively.